ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, bonsoir. My name is Denis Chagnon, and I have the honor and the privilege to be your Master of Ceremonies for this, the 43rd Annual Induction Ceremony of Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame. As you can hear, our inductees and guests are coming in. Please rise and remain standing afterwards for the national anthem. As you've seen, we began our celebrations with traditional and colorful entrance of our inductees. I mentioned a few moments ago, we began our celebration this evening with the traditional and very colorful entrance of our inductees and guests. It was provided by and led by the Pipes and Drums Band of 832 Twi'lek Clarence Rockland Royal Canadian Air Cadet Squadron and escorted by the Royal Canadian Air Cadets of 51 Canada Aviation Space Museum Squadron, 632 Phoenix Squadron, and 832 Twi'lek Clarence Rockland Squadron. Ladies and gentlemen, weren't they good? I think we should applaud them again. We honor today symbolize the extraordinary achievements of men and women who, through their courage, foresight, and legacy, have and continue to develop an industry that contributes day in and day out to the economic, social, and cultural effervescence of our great country. Cette soirée est l'occasion de rendre hommage aux pionnières et pionniers qui ont fasciné une industrie déterminante pour l'avenir de notre grand pays. Ils ont permis aux Canadiens d'ouvrir de nouveaux horizons, de peupler de vastes espaces qui restaient inaccessibles et de bâtir une société ouverte sur le monde. We are delighted to see so many of you here this evening for an event that promises to be rich in memories and emotions. Over the next few hours, we will share in the destiny of 4 individuals who are about to join the ranks of 220 other members of the Hall, as well as the laureates of the Belt of Orion. Their collective accomplishments span over 100 years of Canadian involvement in military and civil aviation, in wartime and peace. To formally greet you to our gala this evening, please join me in welcoming to the lectern the Chairman of Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame, Mr. Tom Appleton. Tom.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on behalf of the Board of Directors of Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame. It gives me very great pleasure to welcome all of you to our 43rd Annual Induction Gala. We have a wonderful slate of inductees to present to you tonight. and it's going to be a good evening with a very special group named to receive the Belt of Orion. I know you'll enjoy the program our hardworking team in Wetaskiwin has put together, but we're going to proceed ahead, and I'm looking forward to a wonderful night. For those of you who don't know this organization well, it may be worth repeating what is our raison d'etre. Why are we here? Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame has two primary goals. One is the preservation of the legacy left by those who went before us, who made outstanding contributions to Canada through our aviation and space heritage. The other, and certainly as important, is our mission to inspire and motivate Canadian youth to take an interest in sciences, in aerospace engineering, in aviation in general, so they can take advantage of the world of opportunities that aviation presents in Canada. Par votre présence ici ce soir, vous démontrez votre appui à ces objectifs et nous vous en sommes très reconnaissants. The selection process for membership in the Hall of Fame is always of intense interest. We rely upon you, friends of the Hall and the general public, to nominate deserving candidates for consideration. Every year we receive new nominations, but we always need more to fill the pool of nominees and to keep the bar high for entry to the Hall. The Nominations Review Committee, the NRC, is composed of a group of eminent Canadians with a vast range of expertise and experiences in every aspect of flight. They encompass a diverse group of pilots, engineers, civil, military, business people, entrepreneurs, hailing from all regions of the country. Leur connaissance et leur parcours nous assurent qu'ils peuvent évaluer toutes les candidatures avec le plus haut niveau de professionnalisme et neutralité. The NRC really is the heart of the Hall of Fame. Do they have biases? It's only natural to have personal preferences, but the chair of the NRC has put together a very balanced group where individual biases nicely complement each other. The names of the committee members remain confidential so that they can make their decisions as objectively as possible without outside interference or pressures. Neither the staff of the Hall of Fame, nor the Board of Directors, nor even the chair gets to influence the selection process of the NRC. It will sometimes take up to 10 years before somebody who has been nominated actually gets inducted, or indeed some may not be inducted at the end of the day. But I can tell you, it's absolutely worth the effort to make the nomination, and particularly it's worth the effort to update nominations that have already been lodged to make sure that they're fresh. The bylaws of the Aviation Hall of Fame limit the appointment of directors to 2 terms of 3 years each. And tomorrow's annual general meeting marks the end of my 2nd term as a director, the day when I surrender the chair. J'aimerais remercier toutes les personnes qui m'ont appuyé durant les 6 dernières années. À l'avenir, je vais continuer à travailler pour le succès du Panthéon et la promotion de l'aviation au Canada. As a friend of the Hall, I plan to spend time beating the bushes to encourage all of you out there to get involved, get out there, put together a small team to nominate new candidates for induction to the Hall of Fame. Thank you, merci beaucoup. And now over to the Director of the Aviation Hall of Fame, Denis Chagnon.
And Tom, before you leave, on behalf of everyone here, on behalf of the Friends of the Hall and all of the members, thank you very much for your 6 years with the Hall. And yes, we'll be there to see you beat the bushes, and we'll be warned. Thank you so much, Tom, for all your good work.
Merci. Très gentil.
Before we begin our dinner, I would like to invite Blaine Fowler a director of the Hall and chairman of the Hall's Operations Committee, for the reading of the Airman's Grace. Blaine, please.
Lord of thunderhead and sky, you who placed in man the will to fly, you taught his hands speed, skill, and grace to soar beyond man's dwelling place. You shared with him the eagle's view, the right to fly as eagles do, the right to call the clouds his home, and graceful through your heavens roam. May we, assembled here tonight, and all who love the thrill of flight, recall with twofold gratitude your gift of wings, your gift of food.
Our inductees have already been escorted on stage. In sequence, I will invite them to step forward and receive the recognition from Major General John Mudauer and Tom Appleton, after which each will say a few words. And this is where the memories and the souvenirs and emotions come in. Major General Mudauer is our guest speaker this evening, and I will have the pleasure of introducing him a bit later. For now, we will proceed with the traditional toasts led by two directors of the Hall. Robert Porter will lead the toast to the Queen, and Blaine Fowler the toast to the members of the Hall. Robert, Blaine, please.
A toast to the Queen. The Queen.
To the Queen.
My lords, my ladies, ladies and gentlemen, I propose a toast to the existing members of Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame and to those who will be inducted later this evening. To those stalwarts who have toiled in the building of Canadian aviation, to those who have made outstanding contributions to the advancement of our aerospace industry, and to those who have led the way, blazing a trail through footless halls of air. To our members.
To our members.
You didn't bring anything to drink either.
And so we begin our formal inductions with Frederick James Carmichael. Fred, if you could please stand. Tom and Major General, if you could please come forward for the official induction.
Yes, good idea.
So Fred, this is a two-part presentation, and because I'm in the military, I guess they assume that I'm well-versed at presenting medals. So this evening, it's my tremendous honor and privilege to present this recognition of your induction into Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame. Tremendously well-deserved, a lifetime of dedication, passion, and contribution to Canada and our aviation history, heritage, and a strong foundation for the future. Thank you very much, and extremely well done.
Thank you very much. Good evening, fellow inductees, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm truly honored. And who would have thought that an Aboriginal boy from a trapline in the Canadian Arctic would be given this honor to stand here before you tonight. Over the past 60 years, I've witnessed tremendous progress in the advancement of aviation in northern Canada. When I entered the aviation field back in the 50s, there were very limited navigational aids available in the north. Maps had limited details, and there were very few airports. Our navigational aids were mainly the sun, the moon, the stars, an astrocompass, and the like. We received a weather and did our flight planning through the Royal Canadian Army Signal Corps, who accessed the information via Morse code. Army signals were like our flight service stations of today and was our only communication to the outside world. Today, we have satellites, and we can carry a satellite phone, and we can phone and talk to anyone, anywhere in the world. In the early days, there were no runways or runway lights in most of the small communities in the Arctic. Whenever called out at night for an emergency, we landed on ice strips. Community members would put out flares, which were usually cans of diesel and rags, to light our pathway. Today, every community in the north has a runway, and you can switch on your lights right from the airplane. Today, we have satellites providing constant weather updates and communications. We have GPS and many other nav aids and flight following systems. You can download a program off the internet and turn your iPad into a glass cockpit with all the latest in navigational aids. So it has been a very interesting journey for me watching all this take place over the years. And I certainly admire and thank those who contributed to the advancement of aviation, making it much safer today. Now, I must thank, we'll have a limited time here, all the people who made it possible for me to be here this evening. The Canadian Aviation Hall of Fame, its board of directors, the selection committee, and all the volunteers. I have a special thank you to a special person, Danielle Metcalf Chennai, renowned aviation historian and author, who spent much time and effort to nominate me. Danielle, please stand. Give her a hand. To those who wrote letters of support, to John Chalmers for his dedication, hard work, and support of us, the inductees. To my family who have supported me throughout my career, and to my wife, Mickey, who did the heavy lifting. I am pleased that my son, Dan, and granddaughter, Leah, are here tonight, and I ask you all to stand, please. The success of any business or organization depends on its people, and I'm truly proud, touched that some of the pilots from my very first company, Reindeer Air Service, are here tonight. Cease Hansen, John Sorensen, Scott Cameron, all northern boys who went on to become jet pilots for major airlines. And I see Terry Harold here, who owns and operates a successful airline, Northwestern Air Lease of Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, who used to come up in the early 60s, do some flying for me. He was an ex-Air Force pilot, gave me my first endorsement on a Beech 18, and Terry is here as well. I can have a hand for all these good, hard-working pilots. There are two people who have now passed on, but who made it possible for me to move from the top line, driving a dog team, to flying an airplane before I even learned to drive a car. One of them was Don Violet, an ex-Air Force pilot turned flying missionary, who arranged for my flight training at Gateway Aviation, Edmonton. Having never been out of the north, I remember flying into Edmonton with Don in his Stinson one dark night, when I saw all the lights, city lights, for the very first time in my life, coming from the bush. I thought, they must be the stars down there. What are we doing, not flying upside down or what? And that's true, I tell you. The second person was Mike Zubko, who started the first air charter service in the Western Arctic in 1947, Aklavik Flying Service Limited, and who gave me my first job in aviation as a ramp rat, and I went on from there. I'm very proud today to be joining Mike as an inductee into the Canadian Aviation Hall of Fame, and that his son and some of the family are here tonight. Tom and family, please stand. In closing, I am thankful to the good Lord for many years of flying, and that I continue to enjoy recreational flying. Thanks to all those who took the time to share this honor with me this evening, many who have traveled great distance, and to all those of you being here supporting me and the Canadian Aviation Hall of Fame. Thank you, good night, and God bless.
Our next inductee is Kathleen Carol Fox. Kathy, it's your turn. What? We're sorting it out.
Sorry, sir. Go around.
You're such a deserving receiver of the Hall of Fame recognition. So, well done. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Kathy.
It's truly inspirational, Kathy, for me to present this to you this evening. I was struck when I was listening to your bio that probably what made you such an excellent person to work in Navigation Canada as well as the Transportation Safety Board is the fact that you mastered every job along the way, right from the passenger who voluntarily jumps out of a perfectly serviceable aircraft as a parachutist, but right through to the pilot with a VFR rating and an IFR rating, right through to mastering the ATC responsibilities and all that goes with that, right through to the regulatory responsibilities. So it's truly an inspiration for me, someone who's worked a lifetime in the aviation business, to present this award to you in recognition of something that's quite rare, somebody that masters all of those dimensions of our business. So exceptionally well done, and we're very proud of you, and congratulations. Congratulations.
Bonsoir, good evening. Thank you very, very much to Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame for this prestigious honor. Thank you very much to those who nominated me, Aki Mansika from the First Canadian Chapter of the 99s. I know you're somewhere out there in the lights. Thank you so much. And also to all who supported that nomination. I'd like to congratulate my fellow inductees. And I'd like to thank very much my family, friends, and colleagues who've traveled, some from as far away as Whistler, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, London, Ontario, Toronto, Montreal, to be with me tonight. It's really special to have you all here, and it was a very emotional moment walking in through this building where I've spent many, many good times over the last 20 years to hear the pipes and to have that reception, so thank you. It's very humbling to be recognized in the same breath with so many Canadian aviation pioneers. At the same time, I feel a tremendous validation for a lifetime of practicing what I love most, and that's aviation and safety. I feel very fortunate in that I knew very early in life what I wanted to do. And I think that that love of aviation was in my genes, as was explained, inherited from my uncle Norman Bruce, who built and flew his first glider in the 20s, possibly the first free glider flight in Canada, and was christened the father of gliding in Western Canada. And I'm so thrilled that his daughter Sylvia and his granddaughter Tamara can be with me tonight. I grew up in the 50s and 60s at the dawn of the space era. I wanted to be an astronaut, a jet fighter pilot, or an airline pilot. Now, my mother didn't want me to fly planes, let alone jump out of them, because she had lost her older brother, her middle brother, Lawrence Bruce, in a gliding accident when he was only 22. My father didn't want me to fly because he told my mother that I needed to learn, and I quote, girl things like cooking and sewing. But in the end, I know they were very proud of my accomplishments. By the time I arrived on the job market in 1972, many doors were still closed to women in aviation. It wasn't until 1973, a year after I graduated from McGill University, that fellow Hall of Fame member Rosella Bjornsson was hired as the first female airline pilot in Canada. In 1980, the first 3 women received their wings in the Royal Canadian Air Force, one of whom, Deanna Bresser, went on to be one of the first female F-18 pilots. And it took a few more years until the Canadian Astronaut Corps was founded, and I actually applied on that competition back in 1982 to become a Canadian astronaut, but couldn't quite compete with the credentials of a Roberta Bondar. Now, even when I applied to work for Transport Canada, there were only about 5% of the air traffic controllers that were female. So women have come a long way since then and can aspire to any task, any job in aviation. In fact, there are so many inspiring women participating in aviation and space activities who could and should be recognized for their contributions that I feel very grateful to have been selected for this honor. Now, of course, we have no control over the timing and the circumstances of our birth, which can sometimes limit the opportunities that we're presented with. But I came to realize that we can control the choices we make. And I realized early in life that if some doors were closed to me, I had to look for alternatives that would still allow me to pursue my passion for aviation. So I'm just going to digress for 1 minute to explain that I wanted to learn to fly, but I couldn't afford it when I was 16. And so I took up skydiving because I figured that was a way of getting up in the air. Once I learned how to fly and land the airplane, I quit jumping out of them. But I still wanted to be an airline pilot, and I couldn't, so I became an air traffic controller so I could tell pilots where to go. Now, as I look back, I realize that a dream can only take you so far. A great work ethic, the ability to cope with adversity, and not least, the support of many people who saw potential in me that I sometimes didn't see in myself, but who encouraged me to pursue a variety of career opportunities and led me through a career path that I don't think I could have ever planned better. Not everyone can be the first to do something. Someone will always get there ahead of you. Not everyone can be the best at something, because somebody can always do it maybe better. But everyone can aspire to make a difference in this world. And I hope I've done that in some small measure and can continue to make a difference through my work with my colleagues at the Transportation Safety Board of Canada or as a volunteer part-time flight instructor at the Rockcliffe Flying Club just across the field from where we sit tonight. So in closing, I am very grateful for this honor, which I take as a sign that I'm on the right flight path, and as encouragement to continue to strive to soar. Thank you all again for coming tonight, and have a safe trip home.
We now move on to our third inductee, William Ross Lennox, and representing Ross is his daughter, Donna Lee Wayman.
Congratulations. Ross was such a great man and a great friend, as a matter of fact, and he certainly deserves all the recognition we can give him.
Thank you.
On our behalf, thank you for coming tonight to accept the award. Good.
Okay, I was just told to relax. I swore I was not going to get teary tonight, but this is really overpowering. And so could you please send the good vibes my way and help me get through this? Okay. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am here tonight on behalf of my brother Jay, my brother Chuck, my sister Gina, and the entire extended Lennox Walker family, most of them who are here tonight. And we wish to sincerely thank the Board of Directors and the Selection Committee of the Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame for this incredible honor that's been bestowed upon my father. William Ross Lennox, who was called Billy in his youth, known as Ross to many, but to the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, he was just Bubba. We'd also like to thank the Hall of Fame for all the encouragement we've received during this process, and in particular, the efforts of Robert Porter, John Chalmers, and Don Gale. Your support, guidance, and patience was greatly appreciated. For those who knew him, and it appears there are many here tonight, Dad was a people person, truly charismatic, with an infectious sense of humor, a quick wit, and a keen interest in everyone and everything he encountered. While he wasn't a physically large man, he had a huge personality that was matched equally by a big heart. But for all that, he was pretty down to earth, a humble individual who would have been completely in awe to be included with those of you on the stage tonight. And also to be recognized with those who have been honored during the past 42 years. And he would have said, this is for the grandchildren, he would have said, wow. He was delighted, I can tell you that, to have been nominated, and was extremely touched and honored by so many who wrote letters of reference on his behalf. All were people he greatly admired for their own strong leadership, character, and many accomplishments. So thank you to Larry Ashley, Sue Bateson, John Orr, Lee Ramage, John Sabas, John Searle, Sergei Sikorsky, Steve Wade, and Carl Wayman. Thank you all. And to the well-known aviation author, Larry Milbury. In addition to Dad's logbooks, your historical writings were invaluable in this process, and so thank you for spending time with Dad many years ago to put down and record his part of the Canadian story. we'd, oh, Larry. We'd also like to express our appreciation to Pratt & Whitney for your sponsorship of this evening's event, your kind tribute to Dad in tonight's event booklet, and for the many opportunities afforded him during his years with the company. I'm sure our dad would have wanted to single out one person for his perseverance and determination in telling Dad's story, and that is his son-in-law, my husband, John Wayman. Together with the two of them, spent many precious and endless hours poring over his logbooks to get the nomination down properly. And if you knew my dad, there was never a simple yes or no to any question. There was inevitably a story or two that had to be told, like the reopening of a camp up north, a campsite after a grizzly bear had gotten in and trashed the site, or very lengthy explanations on cloud formations, wind currents, ice caps, glacier fields, etc. So thank you for the gift that you gave Dad as a gift to all of us. I'm confident that Dad would have also saluted our mom, Gladys, or Walker as he called her. She actually shows up several times in his logbooks. The first on June 27th, 1947, when it reads, aircraft type, Piper Cub, pilot, self, pupil, G. Walker. Mom was a nurse at the hospital in Flin Flon. She was smart, vivacious, loved to dance, and had a wonderful sense of adventure, which was a perfect combination for my dad. And I heard an interesting story earlier this evening, but I don't have enough time to share it with you, but a great story around the two of them. He always joked that she owed him so much money for those flying lessons that it was easier for her just to marry him. I know, though, he would have wanted to recognize her for having traipsed across the north from Flin Flon to the Yukon and back to the West Coast before finally settling in Montreal in the early 60s. And all this with 4 young children in tow, and all in pursuit and response to his ever-escalating aviation career. In preparation for tonight, I discovered an old box filled with a treasure trove of letters he had written her over the decades. They represent an ongoing conversation about their family, their dreams, their challenges, life as a bush pilot, and the exciting and rapidly changing world of aviation, and in particular, the growing use of the helicopter. For all of her own many accomplishments as a pioneer in the health education field, Mom was Dad's sounding board, an ardent believer in his dreams, and the first one to plant the seed for tonight's accolade. Dad would know which of the over 23,000 hours recorded in his logbooks would be worth sharing with this particular crowd tonight. I can pick out the transatlantic crossing, the work with the sky crane, some of the rescue missions, but beyond that, I don't have the knowledge or the credibility to be able to delve into any of those entries. But I am a bit of a subject expert on Ross Lennox, our father and friend. So here are a few lessons that Dad taught us along the way. 1, stay connected. This is one of my sister's favorite stories. I'm the favorite daughter, but this is one of her favorite stories. In our house, we were all trained to detect the sound of the helicopter from a great distance, and it wasn't unusual for someone to holler, "Helicopter," which was the cue for everyone to race outside, vying to be the first one to spot it, and to watch the big bird circle our house. We'd all jump up and down frantically, and Dad would wave before heading back to base. I think all of us still automatically look up whenever we hear that familiar sound above. Lesson number 2 was be prepared. Now, I don't know if this is a bush pilot or test pilot thing, but Dad's car was always equipped with a first aid kit, a shovel, a pair of boots, warm gloves, extra clothing, a bag of sand, beef jerky, bungee cords, duct tape, etc. And I thought everyone filled the back half of their car with precautionary supplies and was truly shocked when I was first dating my husband, John, and he confessed he didn't even carry jumper cables, but had a CAA card. Now, Dad also had a CAA card, but he taught us to be prepared. The third thing was, and you've heard it tonight, find your passion and embrace it. Dad once told me that he got up every day of his working life and looked forward to that day. And it was something he tried to share with everyone, the passion for aviation. He even went into the kindergarten classes in our schools and shared with the young children the joy that he had. And apparently, from one teacher, she told us they were building helicopters in the Lego pit after that. So the last lesson, lesson number 4, was probably the most important for Dad, and it was cherish your loved ones. Okay, send the vibes. Well, his family was always so proud of his accomplishments. Dad, or Bubba, was always our greatest champion. In his retirement years, other than his summers flying up at Plumber's Lodge or his work with Ericsson, Dad spent much of his time trekking across the country and down into Vermont, building a huge memory bank of incredible family times. He was always the center of every gathering and was a magnet for young people. They loved him, and he loved them back. Dad passed away 2.5 years ago, just shy of his 91st birthday, and quite fittingly, he was in the midst of telling a really good story when he fainted, and he took his final earthly flight. So on his behalf, thank you all so much for tonight, for this great honor, and for this very cherished memory that we now have. Thank you.
Our next inductee, Beverly Shenstone, represented this evening by his son, Saxon, please.
Well, Saxon, on behalf of the Hall of Fame, thank you very much to your father. He's such a great man and relatively unknown in Canada because he spent so much time in the UK. But I think it's only recently come out how much he contributed to the design of the wing of the Spitfire and its amazing performance. So on behalf of the Hall, please accept this award for your father.
Good evening. I'd like to thank Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame for inviting my sister and me to represent our family on this occasion. My mother was unable to travel. It's a great privilege for us to be here tonight, and as you heard earlier, fittingly on the eve of what would have been my father's 110th birthday, to accept on his behalf the honour of the induction into the Hall of Fame. My father, although forthright and determined, was also a very modest man who probably would have tried to persuade you that his achievements, which have been described so well tonight in this video that you have seen, that they were not really that unique and that perhaps those who worked with him should take a large share of the credit. But as the extensive work on my father's career carried out by the late Wayne Saunders has shown, and without that work, this recognition, seen by many as overdue, would not be now being presented. The reverse is actually true in many instances. It's a telling example that his solo work on airflow friction on wings, very exciting, known as the boundary layer, carried out in the 1930s and published in Aeronautical Engineering in 1937, was cited as a main reference in the US patent application for the European Airbus in 1999. So groundbreaking work in 1937, still relevant 62 years later. This interest of his in streamlining began as a boy, making working model yachts with his two brothers. And although as a young man he began to apply this interest to aerodynamics with, as we've all seen, ultimately great success, his love for things aquatic never left him. He was greatly attached to sailing, to which he likened gliding, and to the Canadian canoe, which in 1927, with a friend Ken Hunter, he paddled around a large part of southern England and up the River Severn to Bristol, to the disbelief of many local residents, as this was deemed impossible because of the dangerously unpredictable currents in the river. Proud of being Canadian, Canada's Jubilee 1927 was painted on the side of the canoe. And a Canadian canoe was a fixture carried on top of a cabin cruiser, which began life as a hull on our River Thames slipway, and which he and my mother gradually fitted out. It did sterling service as a summer cruiser throughout Europe and Scandinavia when my parents sought to escape the fierce summer heat of Cyprus to where they had retired. And it will come as no surprise that a folk boat was built in Cyprus to enable my parents to continue the much enjoyed pastime of sailing. Although modest about his own achievements, he was always keen to share and spread knowledge, lending support to the careers of many. And in fact, an instance was brought to my attention tonight of this assistance in promoting someone's career. And he really wished to improve the understanding of the many spheres of interest that he had. And consequently, he gained a very good reputation for lecturing on aeronautics, gliding, man-powered flight, and he would have been absolutely thrilled at the development and the extent of things like hang gliding. And newspaper reports do testify that he wasn't afraid to court controversy, for example, publicly highlighting as chief engineer of BEA poor construction techniques in post-war British commercial aircraft manufacturing. As I said earlier, he was forthright when circumstances required, yet modest enough to share his skills and enthusiasm without seeking any personal kudos. And just to finish, I would like to thank once again Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame for this opportunity to be here and just share a few thoughts about my father, who would, in truth, have been proud to have been so honoured in the country of his birth. Thank you.
We now go on to the Belt of Orion, awarded to the Naval Air Branch. Now, we'll do this in 2 steps. I'd like first to invite Lieutenant General Larry Ashley to come forward with Millie McLean. If you could please, Larry and Willie, come up here. Millie will first be awarded the Belt of Orion.
Millie, sir, it's a tremendous honor and privilege for me to present the Belt of Orion. I know Bud's looking down, smiling at us right now. As the senior maritime helicopter member of the Canadian Armed Forces, a community that's well represented here this evening by my brothers and sisters. And of course, I'm proud to have my dear friend Ron Lloyd, future commander of the Royal Canadian Navy, present this evening as well. It's truly an honor and privilege to me, and coming full circle, to present the Belt of Orion to the Naval Aviation Branch, the Naval Air Branch, who has really been the foundation for shipboard aviation and the spirit that continues alive and well in the Canadian Armed Forces to this very day. Congratulations, Millie.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, very well done. So Bud and yourself.
This is truly a special evening, and I am humbled and honored to be here with so many of the Air Branch family. The award of the Belt of Orion for 2016 by Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame was a dream.
My late husband. And my husband.
Yeah, good. Was a dream of my late husband and recognizes the sacrifice, dedication, commitment, and professionalism of hundreds and hundreds of members of the Royal Canadian Navy Air Branch over a sustained period of the Cold War. I know that Bud is looking down this evening with us and other colleagues in the Delta as I accept this prestigious award excuse me, on behalf of every member of the Air Branch who served Canada so proudly. Thank you for this honor. Thank you very much.
I'd also like to call upon Paul Baden to say a few words on receiving the Belt of Orion. Paul, please.
It's a privilege for me to be standing here with her and also with her daughter Cindy, who is here with us this evening, to accept on behalf of the Royal Canadian Naval Air Branch this most prestigious award for excellence. As you're all aware, this particular award is not one that the Hall awards without considerable research, and therefore is a testament to our branch's historic accomplishments during the Cold War era, and also acknowledges the ingenuity, dedication, and sacrifices of our naval air personnel that not only endured the hardships of the North Atlantic, but did so while facing the ever-prevailing threat of Soviet aggression. It is truly hoped that through recognition by institutions like the Hall, future generations of Canadians will acquire better appreciation of our history and the sacrifices associated with nation building. Canada's 3 aircraft carriers, HMCS Warrior, Magnificent, Bonaventure, and our renowned DDHs, with their Sea King helicopters and their unique Canadian-designed, and I emphasize that, hull-down system, referred to as the Bear Trap, provided a never formidable deterrent during these challenging times, as borne out during the Cuban Missile Crisis. The outcome of this potentially catastrophic event was contained by Allied resolve and the judicious application of naval sea power, in which, many of you may not be aware, Canada played a significant role. Now we get to the meat of this, Bud's dream, and why Millie is so important here this evening. In the late spring of 2007, with the Canadian Naval Centennial looming on the horizon, Commander Owen, Bud McLean, launched one of his typical trial balloons to fellow naval aviators. His idea was to find a way to commemorate what he described as the incredible accomplishments of the RCN, Royal Canadian Naval Air Branch, during the turbulent times between 1945 and 1968. Bud was quite concerned that Canadian historians would not adequately recognize the role played by our Naval Air Branch, and concluded that an initiative on our part was not just warranted, but necessary. With his usual thoroughness, Bud set his sights on Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame prestigious Belt of Orion for excellence. How Bud came to care so deeply about this project is not surprising, certainly not to those of us who had the pleasure of knowing and serving with him. As the driving force and principal architect of our submission, Bud had been one of the first 2 naval aviators to be highly decorated under the new Canadian Honours and Award system, and he personally experienced much of what he wrote about in what was a monumental and purposeful sifting of historical material. He was intimately involved from the early days in operational flight, from aircraft carriers, destroyers, and mastered many of the aircraft types and associated challenging operational conditions that earmarked anti-submarine warfare aviation at sea. In his long career encompassing service as an enlisted aircrew specialist right up to command of an operational squadron, think about that, from ordinary seaman to the commander of a squadron, he was personally involved in many of the important technical innovations that so distinguished the Royal Canadian Naval's Air Branch from those of its allies, and lived through, including a catastrophic ditching at sea, and many of the significant events and innovations that are so well described in our submission. Those that haven't had an opportunity to read it, when you do, you will have a full understanding of what I'm saying. He also worked with and later served widely in Canada's aviation industry, so his understanding and appreciation of the critical interface between the 2 domains was well developed and soundly based on personal experience. He knew what he spoke of. Over the course of the next few years, Bud approached many naval air colleagues and military historians, and encouraged by their support and enthusiasm, gathered together a team. Under his leadership, Stu Soward, Dave Tate, Gord Moyer, Ted Foreman, Bob Falls, Paul Manson, Larry Ashley, Peter Milsom, Dudley Allen, Richard Giblin, and myself began the arduous task of documenting the naval air branch story. Everyone realized that this might become a long-term project, but no one knew the extent of the challenge. Our first submission to the Hall targeted the Belt of Orion for 2010, our naval centennial. However, it was 2015 before our goal actually came to fruition. And by this time, Bud McLean, Millie's husband, Dave Tate, Stu Soward, Gord Moyer, Ted Foreman, Roger Piper, and Bob Falls, Admiral Bob Falls, all distinguished Naval Air Branch members and authors of our submission, had passed into what we call the Delta. They're ever circling and above us now, looking down and wondering how wonderful this evening is. And we salute each and every one this evening. The success and accomplishments of the Royal Canadian Naval Air Branch throughout the Cold War were the product of operational savvy, technological vision, courage, risk taking, because we always take a risk, right? Teamwork, high-level sustained professionalism, dedication, and most importantly, individual and collective leadership. The contribution that the Air Branch made to the RCN in its accomplishments of its missions to Canadian industry and to Canada, her alliance partners, during a challenging time in global history was extraordinaire. And I say that in all sincerity. Bud's quest for the belt was a CNAG, Canadian Naval Air Group, Naval Centennial Initiative, undertaken on behalf of all Canadian naval aviation personnel, past and present. And therefore, we say to all members of the Royal Canadian Naval Branch, this prestigious Belt of Orion is your award, gentlemen, for excellence. May we join in congratulating all the other recipients of tonight's awards and sincerely thank the entire Hall staff for their excellent support in making Bud's dream come to fruition. I would also like to thank Admiral Lloyd, soon to be the Commander of the Navy, for joining us here, and in closing would ask that all past and present Naval Air Branch personnel please stand and be recognized. And Bud, thank you so much for your wonderful dream, and I'm so happy that we can stand here tonight and know that it has come to fruition. Thank you, Bud.
Thank you very much, Paul and Millie. Ladies and gentlemen, again, please join me in showing our 2016 inductees how much we appreciate their extraordinary accomplishments and their remarkable contributions to the development and success of aviation in Canada. In addition to the rewards this evening, each new member has received from the Mayor, Bill Elliott, the Mayor of Wetaskiwin, a plaque recognizing them as honorary citizens of the city. Thank you, Bill, for your continued support of the Hall. Wherever you are, please stand and be recognized. Where's Bill? We are extremely proud to have as our guest speaker this evening, Major General John Madower. Major General Madower is one of those fortunate individuals who has had and continues to enjoy a distinguished and rewarding military career. A veteran of Afghanistan in the First Gulf War, where he served as an aerospace engineer in Canada's Naval Task Group, deployed to the Arabian Gulf, John also served in numerous staff positions in Ottawa, Winnipeg, and Halifax. As the RCAF's senior serving member of Canada's shipboard maritime helicopter community, his most memorable postings are those at sea and the numerous shore postings to Shearwater, the historic home of Canada's Naval Air Branch. His knowledge and contribution to aviation in Canada makes John's presence here with us particularly relevant given this year's Belt of Orion awarded to the Air Branch. John currently lives in Orleans, Ontario with his wife, and again, we're delighted to have him with us this evening for his inspiring words. John, if you would.
Merci beaucoup, Denis. Tom, inductees to the Hall, past and present, friends, families, aviation enthusiasts, messieurs, dames, c'est vraiment un honneur et privilège pour moi d'être ici parmi vous ce soir. I bring you personal greetings from Lieutenant General Michael Hood, Commander of the Royal Canadian Air Force. He very much wanted to be here this evening, but after closely reviewing and carefully considering this evening's inductees and recognizing the close professional connection that I have with a number of them, he very, very kindly offered me the opportunity to represent him this evening, and I'm exceptionally grateful. With 4 uncles who served as aircraft technicians in HMCS Bonaventure and many other ships, and as a former ship's company member myself serving in HMCS Protector, I am extremely grateful for the opportunity to be here with you this evening. This evening, we are truly enjoying the company of greatness. I perused the names of the 220 inductees to this wonderful and prestigious Hall of Fame. I am simply astounded at their caliber and the contribution to the colorful history of Canadian aviation. Firstly, I believe we need to thank the Hall of Fame Board of Directors for their leadership, their devotion to Canadian aviation, and for their desire to keep our aviation heroes, leaders, and innovators in the hearts and minds of Canadians. Thank you very much. And to our inductees, sincere congratulations. Today, your contributions to Canadian aviation invite you to stand tall in the ranks of those that were inducted before you, such as Billy Bishop, Andrew Minarski, Hampton Gray, receivers of the Victoria Cross, Alexander Graham Bell, Casey Baldwin, designers of the Silver Dart, Wallace Turnbull, the inventor of the variable pitch propeller, World War II veteran Len Burchell, and astronauts Mark Garneau and Chris Hadfield, to name a few. Family and friends, today is a day to be remembered, a very proud day in which we take a moment to recognize and acknowledge the greatness. Won't you please join me one more time in acknowledging our newest inductees. And what a better locale than to host this event here at the center and keeper of Canadian aviation space and history. Looking around, and perhaps I shouldn't mention this, but I see aircraft that I remember enjoying at air shows growing up. And there are a few that I actually worked on myself as a young officer. As we look around, though, one thing should be clear, that what is represented here this evening, this slice of aviation history, helped to build the Canada that we know and love today. Starting with the first Canadian-powered heavier-than-air flight, the Silver Dart in Bedeque, Nova Scotia, aviation in Canada planted its roots firmly. During World War I, Canadian Aviation Corps was formed, and companies such as the Curtis Aeroplane and Motor Company in Toronto were created. Civil aviation started to take off in Canada in the 1930s with Trans-Canada Airlines and Canadian Airways. Civilian flight within Canada took a once large expanse of landmass and began bringing it closer together through mapping and opening of trade and entrepreneurial avenues that were not possible previously. World War II saw the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan training over 130,000 Commonwealth aircrew on Canadian soil, as well as the establishment of aviation manufacturers such as de Havilland, Avro, Bombardier, and Magellan. Canada, its growth and success can point in part to the partnership and integration of the innovation of our military and Canadian industry. And we see this same passion and innovation in our recipients this evening. Fred, your work in Northern aviation has inspired a generation of entrepreneurs and aviators alike. You led by example and showed us all what is possible through dedication, ingenuity, and the love of aviation. You remain a true inspiration to us all, but especially to Northern Canadians. Thank you. Kathy, your excellent work with NAV Canada, the Transportation Safety Board, and in the advancement of safety is a remarkable feat and represents the standards and examples we all must strive to achieve. Your achievements are also pioneering to us all, but in particular to young Canadian women. Thank you. Friends, family, and enthusiasts of Mr. Beverly Shenstone, where would we be without Bev? As we heard earlier, he is responsible for the elliptical wing design given to the Supermarine Spitfire. The ingenious design made the Spitfire the fastest Allied fighter in the Battle of Britain, and as such, in a way, we all owe our freedom to Bev. I was introduced to the Spitfire's elliptical wing as a third-year aerodynamics class at Royal Military College because it was the most efficient way to create lift. Long after the Battle of Britain, we continue to study Bev's work. To the friends and family of Ross Lennox, what more can be said? Over 23,000 hours of flight bringing into service numerous engines, aircraft, including the one that's very close to many of our hearts in this room, the beloved Sea King, which has provided over 50 years of sterling service to Canada's maritime forces. Ross's work stands as exceptional to this very day. And finally, to the representatives, members, families, and friends of the Royal Canadian Naval Air Branch, you introduced the employment of shipboard aircraft to the Canadian military. Your work has and will continue to shape how we train and fight in the maritime environment. Your groundbreaking ingenuity not only made it feasible to operate aircraft from ships in the rough waters of the North Atlantic, but your pioneering efforts greatly influenced many other navies literally around the world and built a rock-solid foundation from which our current shipboard aircraft community draws its roots, doctrine, and inspiration. Thank you. As I think of the amazing contributions of our latest inductees, I am reminded of the combined efforts of the Canadian military, shipboard aviation community, industry, regulators, individual wisdom and inspiration, engineers, testers, pilots, aircrew, maintenance personnel, all of which converged on Shearwater, Nova Scotia in the fall of 1990. Kuwait had just been invaded and Canada was sending a naval task group of ships to contribute to the international response force. Embarked were to be the Sea King helicopters, but they needed a whole new mission equipment suite before they could be dispatched to the first shooting war that the Canadian Armed Forces had participated in since Korea. In the space of a few weeks, we designed, fitted, tested, and certified the installation of kit that had never been considered or even trialed before. This included a forward-looking infrared camera to see at night, radar warning receivers so we would know when we were under surveillance, a missile approach warning system, GPS, chaff and flare dispensers, an infrared countermeasure system to confuse incoming missiles, troop seats, night vision goggles, video recording systems, nuclear, bacteriological, chemical defense suits, and frequency-hopping satellite communication radios. We did, in a matter of weeks, what normally would have taken a decade in normal conditions. It was only possible because of the incredibly close work of a band of brothers and sisters, shipboard aviators, entrepreneurs, industry, regulator, engineers, testers, pilots, aircrew, and maintenance personnel, just like our inductees tonight. In a similar fashion, they have shown us how to gracefully achieve what many would think impossible. Your induction tonight into the hallowed halls amongst Canadian aviation greats is most fitting and well-deserved. And as we say in the Navy, bravo Zulu, well done. In closing, let me leave you with a few words. To the members of the Hall, thank you for your countless hours, your dedication, and fine efforts. We are forever in your debt. To the friends and family here with us today, thank you for your unfaltering support and love as we pursue the passion that beats in all of our hearts. To our cadets here this evening, keep working hard in school and your community. I have no doubt that we'll be hearing your names up here on the stage sometime in the future. And to the board, may you continue your great work recognizing Canadian aviation heroes, leaders, and innovators as they continue to pursue greatness, climb to new heights, and continue to build a better Canada. Merci à tous.
Thank you very much, John. I'd now like to call upon Tom Appleton again to thank our speaker for his inspiring words. Tom?
Thank you, Denis. General Madar, I have to say thank you very much for giving us such an inspiring talk this evening. I think the installation of the Naval Air Group with the Belt of Orion today is really quite significant in the Hall's history, and we're delighted that you were able to be here to be part of it. And to everybody tonight, thank you very much for your attendance. My colleague, Denis, congratulations. As always, you carried the whole thing through with great class and aplomb. Merci beaucoup. Good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, our 2016 induction ceremony has come to an end. I'm sad because we have an orphan in the room. I've just been advised that there's an orphan BlackBerry cell phone moving around. If you find it, please bring it to Fred's table here at the front. Is that yours, Fred? No?
Yeah, my granddaughter, I'm sure.
Granddaughter, okay. As Tom mentioned earlier, such a magnificent event would not have been possible without the generous support of our sponsors and partners. A big thank you as well to all those companies and organizations whose names and logos you have seen this evening and in the program. We truly appreciate their incredible support and confidence in the Hall. Thank you to everyone else who had a hand in making this evening so enjoyable and memorable. And most of all, thank you for having been such a great audience. As you leave this evening, don't forget to sign up for membership or to become a friend of the Hall, because Tom will go after you. All of the information can be found in tonight's program or later on our website. A reminder again of the photo session at the back of the room for current and new members of the Hall. For those of you returning to the hotel by bus, please check the schedule at the back, and don't worry, no one will be left behind. Until next year, enjoy the rest of the evening, have a safe trip back, and as I mentioned earlier, this is what makes memories and emotions. So I would like everyone to rise and one last time applaud our inductees for this evening.